And you will know my name is the Lord.
I am God.
Damn you all!
Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Now you crash. Now you were work. Son of a. All right, 1 sec. I swear to all. To all do I swear. With many words do I swear. Okay, how do we fix this quickly and decorously? It's too late for that. One night of fire, one shot at glory. Son of a... All right, well, my carefully crafted opening bit may be by the wayside. Shish kebab. All right, 1 second. Don't pretend like you didn't miss me. Okay, well, kind of on brand. Welcome one, welcome all to the one, the only Junkshop Libraries channel, home of the worst camera work and most unsophisticated technological whoozy whatsis on YouTube. Still going after 3 years through the grace of nobody but my very patient viewers. Okay. So I did a quick stream a little while ago during which I picked the brains of the greater library family. And what I was encouraged to do was to get back on my bullshit, as the kids say. So this channel is not for children, this channel is not for the easily offended, and this channel is not really for much of anybody, honestly, but some of y'all just stay along for the ride, and I'm down with that. So, our thing here with Improv Bible Study is we read every word. Every word of the King James Bible of 1611, and then rip it apart like a used tissue, as it so spectacularly deserves. This is a production of Mayhem and Foolishness Productions. Links are in the description. Friends are creeping in the chat. So, it's a little late in the day for the espresso, So we're going to do this the absolute wackiest way we possibly can and do lots of silly features and gestures and facial expressions because we never know when my high-budget, high-tech, spare-no-expense camera is going to decide to join the church triumphant. So we're going to crack open this. So that we can crack open this. Last time we gathered for Improv Bible Study, I looked it up on the channel. It was, believe it or not, over 2 months ago. That was for the story of Jonah, the most unabashedly batshit ridiculous story in Holy Scripture. But what that means is that today we're going to dive headlong with both feet into the book of the prophet Micah. I have no earthly idea what we're in for. Micah, in the religious tradition I was raised deeply immersed within, was kind of largely known for being the minor prophet that comes after the fish story. I have no recollection whatsoever of what we may be about to plunge into. I did say the not safe for children part earlier, right? Good, because I can feel the hate welling in me, and the resentment, and the swear words. So, without further ado, the book of Micah. The word of the Lord that came to Micah the Morasthite in the days of Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, which he saw concerning Samaria and Jerusalem. Oh boy. Hear, all ye people, hearken, O earth, and all that therein is, and let the Lord God be witness against thee, the Lord, from his holy temple. For behold, the Lord cometh forth out of his place, and will come down and tread upon the high places of the earth. And the mountains shall be molten under him, and the valleys shall be cleft as wax before the fire, and as the waters that are poured down a steep place. For the transgression of Jacob is all this, and for the sins of the house of Israel. What is the transgression of Jacob? Is it not Samaria? And what are the high places of Judah? Are they not Jerusalem? Therefore I will make Samaria as an heap of the field, and as plantings of a vineyard, and I will pour down the stones thereof into the valley, and I will discover the foundations thereof. And all the graven images thereof shall be beaten to pieces, and all the hires thereof shall be burned with the fire, and all the idols thereof will I weigh desolate, for she gathered it of the hire of an harlot, and they shall return to the hire of an harlot. Therefore I will wail and howl, I will go stripped and naked, I will make a wailing like the dragons, and mourning as the owls. For her wound is incurable, for it is come unto Judah. He is come unto the gate of my people, even to Jerusalem. Declare ye not it at Gath, weep ye not at all. In the house of Aphrah roll thyself in the dust. Pass ye away, thou inhabitant of Saphir, having thy shame naked. The inhabitant of Zaanan came out forth in the morning of Beth Ezel. He shall receive of you his standing. For the inhabitant of Maroth waited carefully for good, but evil came down from the Lord unto the gate of Jerusalem. O thou inhabitant of Laish, bind the chariot to the swift beast. She is the beginning of the sin to the daughter of Zion, for the transgressions of Israel were found in thee. Therefore thou shalt give presents to Moresheth-gath. The houses of Achzib shall be a lie to the kings of Israel. Yet will I bring an heir unto thee, O inhabitant of Mareshah. He shall come unto Adullam, the glory of Israel. Make thee bold, and poll thee for thy delicate children. Enlarge thy baldness as the eagle, for they are gone into captivity from thee. And there we have the first chapter of the book of the prophet Micah. Oh, great. What an image for the camera to freeze upon. All right, well, apparently we're going audio only again. Okay, so, I mean, it's kind of appropriate that facial expression has largely been my response to the bulk of the minor prophets so far. Okay, a doorknob head. We're in trouble now, y'all. Emerged from his eternal slumber. And seen you in a minute. Good to see you. Okay, so what in the world did I just read? I mean, apart from the fact that what I just read was something that was either very poorly translated or just badly written to begin with. Because very difficult to tell in what person this book was being read at any given time. Junie the Apostate. Long time no see. And Ring, good to see you again. Okay. Here is the first of some of my confusions with what we just read. The word of the Lord came to Micah. That's not hugely surprising. The word of the Lord is coming to a lot of people in the minor prophets. In the days of Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. Now, it's been a minute since we were back in the books of 1st and 2nd Kings and Judges. But Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah both ring faint, tinkly little bells in my brain as having had like stories occur on their watch. Like, I think Jerusalem fell, one of its many fallings is under the care of Hezekiah. Wasn't he one of the ones who went back to the bad shit his daddy used to do before, or his granddaddy used to do? Because that's usually the pattern with these kings in this book, is one of them worships the bad shit, and then he dies, and his son rises to power and returns to the Lord, and then his son rebels against the good ways of the Lord and builds back up the high places and re-erects the penis rocks, and eventually the Lord gets bored of him and deals unto him a smiting. That's pretty much Judges, or not Judges, that was pre-kingship, but that's pretty much the books of 1st and 2nd Kings in a nutshell, right? Just good king, bad king, good king, bad king, good king, bad, bad, bad. But, okay, so anyway, the word of the Lord came at some point to this Micah the Morasthite. And that's all we know about Micah, is he's one of the sons of Moras. Who is Moras, you may ask? I know not. Yeah, not. Hey, Lydia, good to see you. Not really the kind of stream that you usually roll up into on the channel. On the plus side, at least you get to watch it alone this time. Cheers. Okay. So anyway, how I started in on this rant was that the person in which this was written seems confused. I mean, like grammatically, the person in which it was written, 1st person, 2nd person, 3rd person, seems confused. So the word of the Lord comes to Micah, saying, "Hear, all ye people, blah, 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 blah. The Lord cometh forth, blah, 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 and will come down, blah, blah, and tread upon, blah, blah. Everything's going to get melty because they allowed idol worship in the country next door. So everybody's going to get smote." And then it moves into the 1st person. "Therefore, I will make Samaria, I will pour down stones, I will discover foundations, and therefore I will wail and howl and take off my clothes and make dragon-like wailing noises. Yaba, yaba, yabi. Yet will I bring an heir unto thee." And it seems to me that we somehow move from I being God who will bring judgment to I being somebody who's not happy about having judgment brought upon them, and back to I who will bring even yet more judgment, and then will also raise up yet another heir from this dreadfully unpredictable lineage to rule over everything once it's fixed. Except that that's not indicated. So if you just read off the page as it exists, the story is that God is going to come down and melt the mountains and make the valleys deeper for some reason, and knock over all the idols and take off all his clothes and go running about making dragon-like wailing noises and mourning noises like the owls. Which I do not understand. God in this book is not normally characterized as running about the hills and valleys of the ancient Near East, stark-ass butt naked with his clothes left behind. Very strange. Very, very strange. And there's a bunch of place names that I don't think we've encountered before. We've got Micah being a son of Moras. Let's see. Gath, we know. Gath is where Goliath was from. The house of Aphrah, Aphrah. I don't remember that. Saphir is going to lose their clothes. The Zaanites did not come forth to mourn Beth Ezel, and is gonna receive of you his standing. Sounds like 1611 for get his just deserts. And then we move on to the inhabitants of Maroth, who waited carefully for good. I don't really know what that means, because Jerusalem gets smote anyway. So did the Marothites just sit around twiddling their fingers with their thumbs up their behinds, waiting for something to happen instead of doing anything? Then we go back to Lachish, which we've heard a lot about in the books of the prophets, mostly just as like a summoning. Like, I shall bring the Lachishes. And then the condemnation that they're going to have to give to pay tribute to Moreshethgath. I don't know who is. I mean, I was raised steeped in this. I do not have any recollection of hearing, because it's capitalized. I mean, it's a proper noun, but who is Moreshethgath, or is it a place? Hey, Sir Little Wolf. Well, it's hard to tell if you've missed any smiting, although God did melt all the mountains and then strip naked and go running through the wilderness, did God. So you missed something very confusing. Okay, so then God announces in verse 15 that he's going to raise up an heir to Marashah, who will come unto Adullam in the full glory of Israel. And then verse 16, the demand that everybody shave their heads in mourning for their children who have gone into captivity yet again. Yet again, as Israel had Jerusalem turned into an heap, and all of the children taken away, yea, even unto a foreign land. And that's chapter 1. Another proclamation of judgment. But the why is a little vague. There are some hints that there may have been altars to other gods in Jerusalem, which is always a no-no and does tend to get you smoked. But then there's that weird sort of sidelongness right at the beginning, saying the sin of Israel is Samaria. Well, Samaria is not in Israel. Samaria is a whole different country. Israel is, at least in part, being judged because the inhabitants of an entirely different country are not abiding by the laws of Israel. Weird. Not unheard of in this book. I'm going to go out on an interpretive limb here, sort of putting on my metaphorical apologetics hat. I'm not going to bother doing it in person, even though it is within arm's reach, because the camera's frozen, and there's no point in doing a visual bit if there's no way for anybody to see it. But coming at this chapter from a more evangelical perspective, you could use this chapter to justify a position of Christian dominionism. Because if Israel is being smote for the sins of having neighbors who are not following Israel's law, the easy way around that is to make sure that everybody follow Israel's law. And the only way to do that is by taking them all over. If Israel's law rules everybody, and I'm talking about like Old Testament Israel here. This is not about the modern day country of Israel. That's not where I'm going with this. That's not anything I ever discuss online because it's just too fucking complicated and I'm not well enough informed. So, taking the particulars out of the mix for the sake of confusion limiting, if you are under threat by the divine that you will be judged and stamped and melted and overthrown if your neighbors don't follow your laws. Really, the only logical way around that is to make sure you don't have any neighbors who follow other laws. And there's really only two ways to do that, and one involves exterminating everyone else on the planet, and the other is, conversion by sword. You could a long enough shot from a fundamentalist enough interpretation of what's on the page could justify that perspective. I promise you, I had not pre-read this chapter when I put this fucking thing in the biohazard bag for the thumbnail. I just thought it would be funny. It's just suddenly, accidentally, wildly appropriate. So, there you go. I'm still confused as to why God is running around stark-ass naked through the streets of Jerusalem. I suspect that what was intended to be conveyed was that in light of God's proclamation that he would come down and melt the mountains and knock over the Jenga towers and so forth and so on, the inhabitants of the land are supposed to be presented as running around naked and bald to display their woe and their wailing and gnashing of teeth at the fact that they let it go this far and thus brought divine judgment upon themselves. And then in the latter half of the chapter, when it switches back over into the first person, describing only things a god emperor would be able to do, that we're then back inside the head of the Lord. But that transition could hardly be less clear. So, like I said, I think what we're dealing with here is either an issue of amazingly bad translation or something that was not particularly well written to begin with, possibly both. In the case of the minor prophets, it's really hard to tell sometimes, especially in the case of something like this that leans pretty hard into the word of the king is responsible for the welfare of the people kind of perspective, and thus you better watch out because Big Brother is watching. And you got to remember, this is the 1611. This is the authorized version of King James, which we have the documentation. Like, we have the letters that James wrote to the scholars he tasked with writing a new translation. First indicating, or not indicating, but declaring that it must be in language so plain that even the shepherd boy in the field can understand, and B, that it was to prop up the doctrine of divine right of kings and establish the supremacy of the monarchy whenever possible. So there's that. Okay. So, interesting, confusing, weird. Last note, I wonder what is the word translated eagle in the latter half of verse 16, because there are no bald eagles in the Levant. Off the cuff, I am assumed that if you're talking about a bald bird in that part of the world, they're talking about a literal bald bird, some kind of vulture or something like that. But I don't know. And Nerdy Rodent has entered the chat. Oh boy. Hadn't seen you in a minute. Welcome. Welcome. Yeah, God streaking is now canon, apparently. Just running around in the ruins of Jerusalem with his butt hanging out. I don't know what's going on. This is the book of Micah. I don't know that I've ever read this before. This is certainly the first time I've read it in probably 25 years. It's absolutely the first time I've read it and paid attention. So anyway, the book of Micah chapter 2. Open, if you would, your pew Bibles. Woe to them. Oh, that always indicates interesting coming down the pike. Okay. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. Therefore thus saith the Lord, Behold, against this family do I devise an evil, from which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall ye go haughtily, for this time is evil. In that day shall one take up a parable against you, and lament with a doleful lamentation, and say, We be utterly spoiled. He hath changed the portion of my people. He hath removed it from me. Turning away, he hath divided our fields. Therefore, thou shalt have none that shall cast a cord by lot in the congregation of the Lord. Prophesy ye not, say they to them that prophesy. They shall not prophesy to them, that they shall not take shame. O thou that art named the house of Jacob, is the spirit of the Lord straitened? Are these his doings? Do not my words do good to him that walketh uprightly? Even of late my people is risen up as an enemy. Ye pull off the robe with the garment from them that pass by securely, as men averse from war. The women of my people have ye cast out from their pleasant houses. From their children have ye taken away my glory forever. Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest. Because it is polluted, it shall destroy you, even with a sore destruction. If a man walking in the spirit and falsehood do lie, saying, I will prophesy unto thee of wine and of strong drink, He shall even be a prophet of this people. I will surely assemble, O Jacob, all of thee. I will surely gather the remnant of Israel. I will put them together as the sheep of Bozrah, as the flock in the middle of their field. They shall make great noise by reason of the multitude of men. The breaker is come up before. They have broken up and have passed through the gate and are gone out by it. And their king shall pass before them, and the Lord on the head of them. And that's the end of chapter 2. Uh-huh. All right. So, the further we get into this particular book, I'm less inclined, honestly, to the. I was hoping for more smiting. Yeah, me too. I'm less and less inclined to think that what we're dealing with here is an issue of bad translation, and more an issue of some medieval translators just throwing up their hands and doing the best they can with some really not great source material. The the sort of industry standard for most modern publications of the King James Bible is to put in italics words that were left out or just not fucking there in the original text, but were filled in by scholarly consent and then sort of passed down as canon. There were a bunch of italics in that chapter. So I'm really starting to get the sense that Micah is a fragmentary original text at best, and it was just sort of cobbled together because old King Jimmy kind of liked some implications. And then just sort of left in the various councils and diets and what have you of later times, because there's not a lot going on here. I mean, Jonah was funny. Ezekiel was batshit. I mean, we have slogged through quite a bit of wonky stuff over the last couple of years together. But most of the time, you could kind of figure out why such a thing was left in. Micah? There's just not much to get your teeth into here so far. Other than God doesn't like people who do real estate fraud. This would make a little more sense were it set during the reign of David as a rebuke to him for the adulterous, homicidal, and fraudulent way in which he got that vineyard that he liked that was next door. But this is just kind of more of the same of the more in terms of fragmentary text that's just essentially woe unto them on and on and on. And yeah, getting drove out of Jerusalem yet again. King too. Alive this time. Most of the time in these kinds of woe unto them texts, the king dies. Ah. But then why are the others left in? I don't know. What in the... Okay. Let us see. How many chapters does this mess have? 7. And then we go to Nahum. Not entirely sure I've read Nahum either. Then Habakkuk. Then Zephaniah. We are deep in the minors now. Haggai, Zechariah. Malachi's next, isn't it? Zechariah kind of goes on for a minute. Then Malachi, yeah. So we can't see it with our eyes, but we can see it on the GPS. The end of the Old Testament. I will be damned. Don't worry about it, little wolf. Discord Flurf may even be making more sense than this. Chapter 3, it shall be. Micah 3. And I said, Hear, I pray you, O heads of Jacob, and ye princes of the house of Israel. Is it not for you to know judgment? Who hate the good and love the evil, who pluck off their skin from them, and their flesh from off their bones, who also eat the flesh of my people, and flay their skin from off them, and they break their bones, and chop them in pieces, as for the pot, and as flesh within the cauldron. Then shall they cry unto the Lord, but he will not hear them. He will even hide his face from them at that time, as they have behaved themselves ill in their doings. Thus saith the Lord concerning the prophets that make my people err, that bite with their teeth and cry peace, and he that putteth not into their mouths, they even prepare war against him. Therefore night shall be unto you, that ye shall not have a vision, and it shall go dark unto you, that ye shall not divine, and the sun shall go down over the prophets, and the day shall be dark over them. Then shall the seers be ashamed, and the diviners confounded. Yea, they shall all cover their lips, for there is no answer of God. But truly, I am full of power by the Spirit of the Lord, and of judgment, and of might, to declare unto Jacob his transgression, and to Israel his sin. Hear this, I pray you, ye heads of the house of Jacob, and princes of the house of Israel, that abhor judgment, and pervert all equity. They build up Zion with blood, and Jerusalem with iniquity. The heads thereof judge for reward, and the priests thereof teach for hire, and the prophets thereof divine for money. Yet will they lean upon the Lord, and say, Is not the Lord among us? None evil can consume us. Therefore shall Zion for your sake be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem shall become heaps, and the mountain of the house as the high places of the forest. And there we have Micah 3. Finally, Finally, something that makes sense. I followed that. Chapter 1, you couldn't tell who was naked and who was bald. Chapter 2 was just bad realtors suck. And then here we come, chapter 3. I am full of the Lord, full of his power and his might. And everybody who disagrees with me is being paid off behind the scenes. Hey, Diana, good to see you. So yeah, everybody who doesn't think exactly the way I do is a false prophet and probably being paid for it. They're shills. Shills, do I tell you? Big prophecy. Big prophecy cannot be trusted. They're being paid off behind the scenes. Whereas I do justly and walk humbly before God. I don't do it for the money. I just want God to fill me up so that I can teach you about smiting. That last 70, 90 seconds or so is going to sound real fucking weird out of context. Don't do it. Or if you do, at least make it funny with graphics. Okay, so God is naked. Eagles are bald. Bad landlords are evil. And anybody who disagrees with me is being paid off by big prophecy. To be so incomprehensible, there's a lot going on in this book. It's all over the place. It's like Micah, pick a lane. Holy shit. Where Micah got beef with somebody. With a lot of somebodies. So far in this book, and we're only 3 chapters in, and it's 7 chapters long, so we're not quite halfway through. And so far, he's had beef with the king and with realtors and with prophets and pretty much everybody but himself. Just a shame he couldn't be better organized or more articulate. I mean, this is some woe unto them mess. This is. The problem is he's crying woe unto everybody, and it's apparently he's only got like the front and back of one sheet of paper to get it all onto. So when he catches himself start to ramble, he just logs off and says, "Thus saith the Lord," and moves on to the next topic. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but because y'all know I've been rooting for stuff to have been edited out and for some of these books to be shorter, going clear back to fucking Genesis. And that was nearly 3 years ago at this point. We may have actually crossed the 3-year anniversary. I'm not entirely sure. The last couple of years have been the slowest passing lightning blur in my entire life so far. But I kind of wish MICAH was a little longer, because I kind of feel like that this book might be the book of MICAH. I kind of feel like the book of MICAH might be a little more interesting and get your teeth intoable, were it not just so all over the place. I mean, we started out like 5 verses into chapter 1 with God ripping off his celestial garments and going running, screaming, buck naked through the city, making mourning sounds as of owls and wailing like the dragons. I will say that's another thing I do kind of love that we keep tripping over in the prophets various, is just this blanket assumption that everybody knows what dragons sound like. Sound like. Not are supposed to look like. Not as appear in the illustrations. Just like, yeah, you know, that sound dragons make. Because it's forever like the roaring of dragons, the wailing of dragons, the farting of dragons, all over the various prophets. The farting of dragons all over the various prophets? Is that what I just said? What even is this channel? Okay, so, but like I said, this blanket assumption that everybody knows what dragons sound like. Now that I've got to be pretty sure is some kind of translation problem. You know, I mean, that has cropped up before, like badgers. There's a handful of references in the Old Testament to badgers. Well, badgers are not native to Bronze Age Levant. They're British. So somewhere along the way, the King James translators tripped over this word for something that goes bobbling around on the ground and digs holes. Didn't have any idea what that was supposed to mean, and just grabbed the nearest thing, and it happened to be badgers, because it couldn't be moles, because there's always some vague degree of threat associated with badgers in the Old Testament. Dragons. Like, what was dragons in the ancient Near East that everybody knew what they sounded like? So that stark-ass, butt-naked God could go running through the streets of the ruins of Jerusalem, wailing like a dragon, and everybody just knew what it meant. Yep. So, there's that. But yeah. Woe unto them. The kings, the idolaters, the bad landlords, and the prophets who disagree with me, who must be being paid off by big prophecy. Very strange book. Very strange. Like, even by minor prophet standards. Doesn't touch the weirdness of the major prophets. Because remember, one of those was fucking Ezekiel. With his 100-eyed angels on unicycles or whatever it was that we decided it was back in the day. We decided it was that. God damn it, I'm blanking on her name. It was a marvelous turn of phrase. So, get far enough into the minor prophets and you get bald eagles, dragons, predatory landlords, and prophets for hire, all within the space of 3 chapters, and woe unto all of them. Oh, and owls. Well, we're pushing the top of the hour. Well, not the top of the hour, but the side of the hour. The 3. It's been almost an hour I've been streaming, and I've been looking at my derpy facial expression for almost all of it, and I've had about all I can take of that. But thank you all for coming to the could hardly have been less publicized or pushed first time in 2 months episode of Improv Bible Study. Seriously, thank you for coming. It really does mean a lot. Some relatively new friends of the channel, and some folks who've been with me since damn near the beginning. So, I guess we'll just have to do this again before I forget about it or stress out about it too much and second guess myself out of doing anything with it for another 2 months. Who knows who it will be woe unto next time? Because we've gone from Craigslist prophets clear up to the King of Israel, and also the wicked country next door. In this one, is not. Little Wolf says, I came in the middle. Not entirely sure why that. Pardon me. Anyway, so moving right along. Yeah, I'm not sure who there is left for there to be woe spoken unto, especially since we've now driven everybody, including the king, clear out of Jerusalem, so that God, whose face is death to see, is just streaking around the city, stark buck-ass naked, making dragon noises. But we got another 3 or 4, I can't math, chapters of Micah to get through. So we'll see. Apparently there's got to be somebody, unless this is one of those prophets that decides to kill off his minor characters right at the start of his prophecy, and then spends the rest saying how glorious it will be when we all finally return to the righteous right way. Very strange. Very strange. So, we will see you all again at some point. I'm not going to pretend to say when, because if there's one thing I've learned about myself, it's that I can't schedule these things for shit. But seriously, thank you for coming. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for putting up with both the mayhem and the foolishness. And the naked God. And as we always say before we roll out of here, everybody do care and be safe. And stand against hate. And we will see y'all again soon. Bye now.